Diamond Dave back once again. Today I'm gonna take a look at a track. It's just came out. It's absolute fire. It's Milo remix of the Skrillex Killer Noise, Fat Man Scoop, and Michael Angelakos, which I've never heard of, but I gotta check them out because this track is pure fire. So I kind of like that Twerk sound. They do the best I've heard it. My preference, at least. So we're gonna take a listen to the drop and see what kind of is going on, and try to recreate what they've got going on here. So here's the drop. So, jumping over here, to start with, the drums. One thing you'll notice here is Twerk is around 100 BPM. It's kind of like the same sounds as trap, so 808s, things like that. I'm going to run through what I kind of put together here. It's the drum rack, and it's just something to kind of get us going. So far I got this. I'm using Metrum. I use that. It would be kind of like simpler. But it's control the envelopes and things like that. So what I got going on here is with this Metrum. I'm using the oscillator from Metrum. So it's basically a sine wave that pitch bends down. And that kind of gives you a 808 sound. Soloed just by that itself, it sounds like this. And then I got that layered with a little attack. And it just gives you a little high-end attack to it. And I also got this little, it's kind of a reverb tail that it just adds a little bit of more character to it. And the real trick to these trap kicks is they're having them short. So they got a lot of bass in them, but a lot of sub, but they're short. So they're punchy. So when layered with the other sub 808, the long bass note, then it punches through. So it can marry well with that. I also have this 808 snare in a hand clap, and I got some reverbs here. I got a long reverb for the snare and the clap, and then I got a short for both of those. Without it, it just doesn't sound normal. And I put the saturator on the reverb to kind of bring out a little bit more presence. So kind of like that. And then I got this UBK on here. This is a great plugin. It's $199. You can't pirate it because you need a iLock for it. But it's great. I like the way it's laid out, because you got your what they call headroom, and so you could push it, you could drive it, and it could be clipping. You see a red light, and then you also got this, but in a good way. And then you got this saturation knob, which you could add a little tone, a little harmonics, and then it's nice because right here you got this wet dry, and that feeds to the compressor portion, where the way this is set up, it's got these descriptions here, which are emulations. They're recreations of classic drum type compressors. So I think the glue is actually like a SSL emulation, and then one of them is 1176, and things like that. And the whole idea about this compressor, which makes it really cool, is you could actually over compress. So instead, it goes beyond what is physically possible, and that can have some interesting effects. And they call this guy from the Kush Audio calls it a kind of a groove machine in a way, because you could use the pumping of the compression to your favor. So let's see what that sounds like. You mix it in with wet and dry. It's also got this side chain. You could side chain out the sub so the compressor doesn't affect the sub frequencies, which is really nice for drums. And then it's got this thickener, which I think is kind of like a limiter, and you could kind of squeeze the or density they call it. And you could kind of do that to the top or the mids. But I like this plugin. It's really great. Then I got a limiter just to kind of hold it all together. Okay. So you get that kind of twerky beat. And then I got the Iris. And the Iris is a great plugin because it's a sampler, but it also time stretches. So if you have a sample like this 808 that has the decay, you have the choice whether or not you want to, if playing different notes, if you want it to have the same decay by resampling it, or time stretching it in that way, or you could do it like a traditional sampler where if it'll pitch, it'll shorten as you go up in pitch. So I've been using it for that. And then this sample I got, it's out of the 808 Warfare sample pack, which is a lot of great 808 one-shots. And it has a waveform edition, which I have to use because I don't have contact player. And then, so that sounds like that. It already has a great sound to it, some processing, but then I put a little bit of distortion on it with this pusher, which is another Kush Audio plugin, which is great because it emulates tape distortion, but it also has that wet dry feature, also has a side chain feature, and then it has a limiter which emulates, I would say, 1176, kind of fast attack, fast release. So it's good for drums, and then you have the wet dry right there. And with that on there, it sounds like... So you just bring out some of those harmonics together. Sounds like this. So it's hitting good. I feel like I need that to get kind of going, because you take all that stuff off and say you got drum sounds or whatever, and you just kind of plug them in there. It just doesn't sound right. It sounds weak. So I like to kind of put some effects on there, squeeze it a little bit, and if you save that, I could then save this drum rack. I could call this Twerk. Twerk beat. Get rid of this. I could put that, let's say, let's even make a new folder. We'll call it Twerk. So we got this Twerk folder with all those, the way it is, the sequence, it's the MIDI clip, the synths, the samples, the effects, all on there. You can drag it right in there. And so that way, you want to work on a Twerk track, you have it right here. And the great thing about this library, as I've said before, is you could audition from here. So you could hear an actual beat with that sound and not just a sample, not just a drum sound. It's something that has already been kind of put together. So when you're working on something, you could kind of just, for one, you could drag it straight in, which is quick, and you've already done all that work to it. And then also, if you're looking for other elements, you got them here in your library, then you could put them together with that. You know, I could do the same thing for this sub, Twerk sub. And the big thing about that Milo and Otis track, it's got some swing to it. So I have this percussion part, which is kind of is the rhythm to the foundation. Now you hear it just doesn't sound right. Well, throw some swing on it. Then it's got that kind of bouncy thing. Now with the synth, I tried messing around with Massive, and I kind of did a little work here. I'm going to walk through what I did. Now this is just an attempt to, it's analyzing this sound. So it's kind of more of a percussive type sound. It's a good contrast to a long bass sound. So it's kind of more of a mid-rangey bass sound. And I started with Massive, and I did a lot of stuff here, kind of subtle things. I'll turn off all this stuff now. I didn't have anything there. Modulation. So starting with this one oscillator, I got some modulation here that is using the same envelope as here. So this, to get that kind of punchy sound, you have a short kind of decay. And if that was all the way up, it'd sound like this. And I got a little bit of release on there too. So it's slightly modulating these elements. Add that with, there's a little bit of a kind of pitch bend, so pitching down from 3, and I have that modulation from the first envelope. So it's pitching down up 3 semitones to that root. And then throwing this other oscillator and some. It's kind of more of a higher harmonic to it. And then we got another oscillator. We're using this modulation. That's like we're putting a little phase on there. And then running through the filters here, I got the filter in parallel, and this first one sounds. I got a little, so it's using that same envelope, controlling all these parameters, so you have subtle movement, so it doesn't radically change the sound, but it's enough to kind of make it talk a little bit. And then the dimension expander, and then the EQ. That's big because you're putting that envelope on some mid frequencies, where a lot of that talky stuff is in the mid-range frequencies, so you're automating the level of that. And now going to some effects. We have this, which is bark of the dog. It's boosting some low frequencies that I want to push into the distortion, and without it, sounds like this. Then you put that on there. It kind of drives that low frequency in there. And also this bark of the dog is like the Voice of God plugin, which it's a very thin band resonant high pass filter. So it'll roll wherever frequency it's at, it'll roll off. I got it at 48 because I think that's the F root frequency. And then, so it rolls off below that, which is nice. So it kind of tightens it up a bit. And then going to this EQ, I'm cutting some mids, and I'm boosting some kind of higher, kind of vocally frequencies. And then I'm running that to another pusher. Kind of, it's a little bit too much. This has also got a compressor on it, which is nice. It's a fast tack, fast release, kind of like 1176, as we talked about before. And the wet dry. Not crazy about it, but it's has a little bit more dirt to it. And then I got another kind of rolling off some of that low frequency again. Got a well filter. And then to give it a little bit of a dimension, put this, I got this Manny reverb, it's on ambient. That's that, and just for the heck of it, you throw a little compression on the whole thing. Now it's not a bad start. Needs probably some more processing, and once you start adding some other elements in there, I think then you get a clear picture on what the frequencies and the sounds need to be, and then you could tweak it. But you're still in a highly tweakable place here. Still a synth; it's not bounced down. So that's kind of that. That's a kind of rough start of that kind of sound. Um, is my first stab at it. So, you kind of massage these sounds a little bit, get them the way you want them. And, you take, I think my point and what took me a while to get used to is the goal is not to make the sound like the other guy. It's a good exercise to try to do that, but if you leave yourself open to attempting to do that, but then you still want to make it sound good. You want to try to sound good over trying to make it sound exactly like that other sound, because you don't know how that other sound was made. So it's you just want to make something that pops in the ears and is pleasing to you. And so I think these it's kind of a good exercise. You learn, you do more, you learn a little bit as you go. So I guess the takeaway is just keep at it and do what sounds good. Well, I hope there was something helpful in here, and I'm going to keep at these videos. I've already kind of learned a lot myself, and doing these videos kind of made me a little bit more accountable with my time. So I'm going to keep doing it, and hopefully we come up with something good here. Thanks for tuning in.